Hey there everyone, Video Game Cabinet here, and tonight we're doing a review on Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which I played on the Nintendo Switch. This past week, I have been playing Ori and the Will of the Wisps on normal difficulty setting. I have logged roughly 17 hours to reach the end credits, as well as complete a majority of the side content, including all of the side quests. According to my save file, I have completed 83% of the entire game to be exact, and I am ready to give my thoughts. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is an indie Metroidvania title that released in 2020. It is the sequel to 2015's Ori and the Blind Forest, which I played last year and rated an 8 out of 10. Blind Forest was very good, but Will of the Wisps is even better. Just like the original, you play as an ethereal cat-like creature as you explore a giant forest. But this time, you are searching to find your friend Owl that you got separated from during a storm. You eventually encounter a giant toad guardian who implores Ori to find the 5 wisps that will heal the forest from its corruption and save the animals from the terror known as Shriek. The story of Ori and the Will of the Wisps is minimal but touching, and gets surprisingly emotional halfway through. Will of the Wisps strengthens what Blind Forest already did so well, which was the exploration, atmosphere, and platforming. The world is even bigger this time around, but it's not too big. I loved exploring for every secret upgrade and pathway I could find, and there were even some fun little side quests to pursue. The environmental puzzles were really intuitive, requiring certain skills you would attain along your journey. And each area felt distinct with different tones of color and music. Will of the Wisps is a beautiful game with lush scenery and a superb cinematic soundtrack. The music for the Silent Woods and more of the Spiders theme were a couple of my favorites. The expert platforming is fantastic, just like it was in the previous game. As you progress through Will of the Wisps, you unlock awesome new acrobatic abilities to expand your repertoire. The launch, burst, and triple jump all greatly enhance the parkour possibilities. Ori is so nimble that I always felt like I had one last ace up my sleeve every time I was about to miss a ledge. Will of the Wisps also fixes the few weaknesses from Blind Forest, namely the combat, save system, and lack of boss battles. In Blind Forest, all you did when fighting enemies was fry them with your spirit flame, and that was it. In Will of the Wisps, there are a good number of actual weapons you can use to battle the creatures, and even bust out short combos. There are several weapons you can purchase and upgrade, but I stuck to fighting with the Spirit Edge and Spirit Smash in my playthrough. There is also a much better checkpoint and save system than before. In Blind Forest, you had to manually create checkpoints yourself by using energy cells, and remember to do so every so often. In Will of the Wisps, the game saves automatically for you at very frequent intervals. It's one less thing to stress about. And finally, the boss showdowns in Will of the Wisps are epic. Blind Forest had fun escape sequences, but not much in the way of actual boss encounters. This sequel combines exciting chase segments with traditional melee boss fights, and it works wonderfully. The bosses here are frightening and challenging, especially the Wolf Howl, the Spider Mora, and the final boss Shriek. I could hardly put Will of the Wisps down once I started playing. Ori's graceful free-running, the deeply atmospheric surroundings to explore, and the thrilling boss battles and chases make this a must-play for fans of the Metroidvania genre. This is a great sequel, and I love it even more than the original. I rate Ori and the Will of the Wisps a 9 out of 10. And that is my review. Yeah, this was really good. I've been meaning to get to this one and get it off the backlog for a while because I, about a year and a half ago, just a little bit before I started this YouTube, I beat Ori and the Blind Forest, the first one, and I gave it a short review on my Instagram, and I uploaded that later on my website. And I gave that one an 8 out of 10. That one was a really good, beautiful game, but this one fixes the few weaknesses that it had. Like I said, the combat. The combat is really good. The boss battles are really good. Are they quite as good as something like Hollow Knight, which I gave a 10? Not quite, but they're still really, really solid. And the melee combat is there. It wasn't really there in the first Ori. You just had this little floating orb that would zap the enemies. This one, you actually have like different weapons. Like I use this I forget the names of them. I wrote them in the review, but the sword, and then there's this big sledgehammer that you swing around, and you can stomp down on the ground with it and do I think it's called the Spirit Smash. So there were good weapons, and then there's other ones that you can buy that I didn't really use much at all during my playthrough. But yeah, the music is really good. The graphics are beautiful. It's 2D. It's a very, very beautiful looking game. This was just a really damn fine example of the Metroidvania genre. And it's a tight playthrough. It took me 17 hours, a little bit less than that to reach the end, but then I did a little bit of the extra stuff. I wrapped up some side quests after I reached the end credits. Yeah, the final boss fight is really epic. The spider fight is really epic. All the other fights are epic, and the chase sequences are just really beautiful, thrilling, cinematic. This was a great game. Yeah, it absolutely deserves, a very strong 9 out of 10. This was really good. A must play. I'm really glad to have finally experienced this. And yeah, also worth mentioning, the story, it's pretty simple. It's minimal, but it's a very nice touch. It is touching. It gets very emotional throughout, but especially halfway through. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, the story was pretty good here for a game that's definitely focused more on the gameplay and the exploration and the atmosphere. Yeah, like the story definitely was a nice touch, a nice little enhancement to how great the rest of the game was. So yeah, it's on the Switch. I would say about 65% of the time I was playing on docked mode on the big TV, and then something like 35% of the time I would play on portable mode. So that was convenient to be able to take it along with me, to work or whatever, to get some other side stuff done. But yeah, for the most part, I played it on the big screen TV, and it's a beautiful game. Like I said, this came out in 2020, so it's a little bit recent. Right now we're in December of 24, and I'm finally getting to it. But yeah, great game. Highly recommended. Those are my thoughts. 9 out of 10 for Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Absolutely go out and play it if you love Metroidvanias like I do. And have a good night.